Hello and welcome to Sweet Maria's Coffee. No, seriously, this is the roasted coffee from the home barista competition that we had helped judge. Me and Steve Ford from Ritual Coffee had judged the coffees along with Jim Schulman and Bob Yellen on their end, and there was a lot of questions about the quality of the roast, so I wanted to try very quickly to run through these and look at some of these roasts and try to point out some things that might be helpful to people. This is code number 1, which was David Raniero. This was a coffee that was very controversial because Jim gave it 88, Bob gave it 86, and Steve and I gave it 79. So I wanted to look at this one. It's one thing we noticed about it is it's quite dark. I'm looking at this under strong light. I've tried to balance this for tungsten, and I have to manually focus everything on this, so I'm sorry about that. And as you know, with macro, you get a very narrow depth of field, so things go in and out of focus very quickly. I feel that this roast, we thought this was very dry and resinous, and I know the other guys took that as kind of dried distillates and liked it. However, Steve and I thought there were distinct roast problems here, possibly with the softer coffees in here, if there's some Sumatra, and it seems to be a sort of a, well, actually, it could be pure Ethiopian, honestly. And we see things like this, which is perhaps signs of tipping. We also think that at this degree of roast, you've covered up quite a lot of the early things that crop up in roasting, like scorching. Some of these things that does not look great to me. So we differed on this roast. We're not exactly sure about this one. The next roast is number 2. We're not going to go through all of these. Number 2 is Ed Bourgeois. I'm sorry if I didn't say your name right, Ed. This is a name I've known for an incredibly long amount of time, and I always, in my mind, I guess it's Bourgeois. It's Bourgeois. Okay, this scored a lot higher with Jim and Bob. We gave it 84, and we thought it was solid. In fact, I know I was higher on this roast than Steve Ford was. And perhaps it was the coffee, I don't know. What we saw in this roast was a really nice roast development. Here you can see, right here, I mean, this is a really nice dense bean. I think this is the Maravilla bean here. I don't know if this was a blend or not. When you see surface color like this, there's still some texture to it, but it hasn't been puffed up as it approaches second crack yet. And also this is held up really nicely over time because these roasts are not that fresh when we're looking at them right now. I think I'm seeing an excellent roast here. So notice the end here. That's no tipping. So tipping is the dark marks you get on the end of a coffee. And the easiest way to tip coffee or scorch it, another name for scorching is facing. And facing would be dark marks on the side of this flat side of the coffee here. A couple ways to do that. One is to put coffee into a roaster at a very high temperature, and the second way would be to overload the drum. Okay, now this coffee, we just didn't know what to think. We think this is a melange intentional with where somebody blended 2 different roast levels. Obviously, you have a completely different roast here. Now, if the fact is this coffee was scorched in the roaster, wasn't agitating around in the roaster, and was in the same batch, then that's a real roast problem. The trick is that when a coffee's roasted like this, you can't tell what happened to it. So one of the things is and I think in general in roasting and home roasting is that darker roasts, well, even any roasts, cover up what the true story of the coffee is, which is what Well, it's what happened during the whole roast, but it's also what happened earlier on. So you can't be too proud of getting a really nice even roast color if the way you got there involved some really uneven heating early in the roast. What you're going to do is you're going to obscure the problems. There were some things I liked about this roast. It had a really kind of a Dutch cocoa, dark chocolate hint to it from these dark beans. And my theory is that this was done intentionally, and this is a melange. I thought it worked better than Steve did, but you got to realize this is not Ritual's roast style there. This is number 4. The problem with number 4, which we had some differences in scoring, is that it's essentially a cupping roast. It's a very light roast. And since Steve and I felt we were trying to judge roast here, not the coffee so much, the issue we had with this is that maybe it's kind of like a cop-out. You're not really roasting enough to let us know how the roast is going. Some of these here, let's try to key in on that one, okay? That is really light. It's like this right here. That's extremely light, and you can see that in the variegated color of the coffee, which is not bad for cupping here. But it will give false sense of brightness and stuff in the cup. But you also see that in the lack of bean expansion, and a lot of that you can tell from the hardness of the edge. Like this sharpness of the edge on this coffee, it's kind of something when you see a lot of coffee you generally get a feeling for, is that really has not expanded at all. So the other issue is that some of the people culled their roasts. This person did not. So we have borderline Quaker coffee here, underripes. And I'm really not sure what coffee this is, I gotta tell you. Because the Quakers would come up mostly in the Haile Selassie, which was one of the coffees. This is a definite Quaker right here. And you can see that not only in color, but in the evenness. I mean, and a Quaker being an underripe coffee just simply doesn't have the chemical compounds fully developed in it because it's not ripe. So when it comes to roasting, it doesn't have those base compounds in order to catalyze and produce these, the new compounds that are formed during roasting. So one of those being, it doesn't really have the capability of fully going through the Maillard reaction, which is the browning reaction that makes coffee the color it is. So 4 was a nice light roast, not